Welcome back, everybody, to Overdunk episode 39. This is a competitive Pokemon Unite podcast here on the Unite Mics Network. I am your host, Zoinks, and I am joined here by two of the best minds in the entire game. I got co-caster of mine, Jeff Hoagland, as well as TOS support, maybe tank player now, Feppy?
Maybe tank someday?
Maybe tank. We'll see. All of this will be debated. Your teammates will flame you. It'll be okay. We'll figure it out. But obviously, for anybody just listening in audio land, you may not know these two if you're just getting into the scene. So let's go through a quick round of introductions. I'll get you both to introduce yourself. And I'm not going to make you answer any kind of icebreaker. Just tell people maybe why they might know you, who you are a little bit. Jeff, why don't you do your intro first?
How's it going? As Zoinks mentioned, I was a part of the Championship Series broadcast. We were co-commentators for the World Championships in London, which was a ton of fun. I've been an avid Unite player since it released on the Nintendo Switch last summer. I've logged over 4,000 competitive matches. I play a lot of solo, duo, and trio queue in addition to spectating an incredible amount of Pokemon Unite. Outside of just being a big-time gamer, I've also got a couple of degrees in mathematics where I study game theory among other topics, and I really enjoy the theory crafting theoretical side of the game.
Cool. Okay, a math wizard in our midst. That's good. I don't think Feppy and I are going to be able to do that at all. Awesome. Hey, Konashi, thank you so much for the raid. Okay, Feppy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Feppy. I'm the support player for Team TOS. We got top 4 at the NA regionals, just so close to making it the Worlds, but we didn't quite get there. I'm well known as like the mad scientist behind the scenes that comes up with all the weird, wacky strategies and
How
the
many
weird, wacky
degrees
builds.
do you have?
I try them.
Yeah, how many degrees
none.
do you have? Okay.
None, unfortunately. None. But you know, I always am the person coming up with the weird stuff. I'm the person that comes up with stuff like try and trick Phantom Force Hoopa way before everybody else. I was the one that started pioneering. What I'm known for is pioneering Floatstone Hoopa before anyone else.
Yeah.
I still don't think anyone else does that one.
Or they dropped it like the hot rock that it is. But yeah, it was shown around a little bit there for sure. But awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, if you've been following Unite Mics Unite Scene, you already know these two, but we're going to have a lot to talk about today because we are looking at basically a brand new game headed into year 2 of Pokemon Unite. A ton has changed. If you are listening, I just want to give you a quick format of the episode. We're going to hit a bunch of stuff. We're going to talk about the new Pokemon that have been added to the game so far and ones that have been majorly changed after the most recent patch. Then, of course, we'll talk about the new map. And then, of course, because it's a competitive Pokemon Unite podcast, I want to round out the show talking about the 5v5 gameplay of Unite, the tournament scene going forward, what we think will be happening in the realm of competitive Unite. So something I'm very excited for. There's a lot to talk about, but let's start with the new toy that we were all given to play with, technically for free if you have the patience of a mountain. But Mew has been added to the game, a attacker Pokemon, which I actually really love the design they use for this Pokemon, mythical Pokemon, and it has, of course, in the video games, its whole shtick is that it can learn every move, so they gave it 6 in Unite that you can hot swap at any time. Have you two had a chance to, like, you know, really put in the hours on Mew, or have you not touched the Pokemon yet?
I probably got about like 20 hours already on the mon.
Okay.
Something like that. I've been playing it a lot. It's easily the most fun mon I've ever played, and it's not even close.
Yeah.
It's insanely fun.
It makes sense. I mean, they gave it Caitlyn from League's Unite or Ultimate as its boosted auto, so that's neat.
Yeah.
Jeff, how about you? Have you got to play much Mew?
I've logged about 30 matches with it, and I've
cool.
probably watched 3 or 4 times that with other players better than myself playing with it, and it really seems like a character that's going to have such an incredibly high skill cap inside of comp play. Not only does it have those 6 attacks, but it gets to relearn its skills inside of combat, and every 20 seconds when you do that, the cooldowns on your skills don't transfer to the new ones that you're learning. So you see these really excellent players, you know, fire off their skills, press the relearn, queue into 2 more skills, and basically press 4 buttons in quick succession to get a really big impact burst inside of an engagement.
Yeah, it honestly seems the closest we have to like the 360 no scope from other video games is Mew getting 4 moves off in rapid succession to great effect, of course. Feppy, do you have any weird combos that you've discovered in your quest with Mew that you really love pulling off?
One of my favorites to pop off with is solar agility. Most people
Okay.
pick solar light screen, but there's
Mhm.
just something about being able to reposition your solar beam and like as you're casting it,
That is
it's
cool.
that you just move it and delete somebody that wasn't expecting to be hit. And another one I've been working on and trying to figure out recently is actually electro ball coaching.
Okay.
Because electro ball is such a short cooldown, and because coaching reduces the cooldown of your other move by 1 second, you can just Electro Ball, spam your coaching a couple times, throw out a boosted auto, Electro Ball, spam out your coaching, and just you can do a bunch of burst damage really quickly if you have your teammates around.
Okay.
Yeah, I've really liked Electro Ball coaching as the starting skill set when you go into the lane because it last hits reasonably well. And then if you have your lane partner there, like you said, you can coaching them twice even because coaching resets its cooldown when you jump to someone for the first time.
Okay,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. That's a really fun combo. I mean, I feel like we're just scratching the surface with this Pokemon so far. There is a lot to be discovered from it. I'm excited that we've already seen it in a couple of tournament plays, if it was unbanned, in whatever tournaments that I have seen so far. And it was a really, really exciting Pokemon. So I'm definitely excited to see what it shows off. Employ some new strategies too with it. I mean, the range on Solar Beam is absolutely ridiculous. So you are able to clear farms so quickly and from a very safe distance.
Yeah, speaking
Yeah.
of clearing farm, that level 10 upgrade on it, you get the cooldown reduction for everything you hit, which is 1 second. So when you line up knockouts with those groups of wild Pokemon, you often get to beam in rapid succession with each other.
That's the best thing. I love that. Yeah, so when there's
Oh,
6 Natus in the top path and you line them up, you're pretty much good to go. Yeah, it is a absolute combo. But let me ask you too, it's a new Pokemon, so fun. I love watching me being played. I love playing the Pokemon. It's very strong though. It's boosted auto. I just mentioned it's essentially Caitlyn's ult from League. The farther distance away, the stronger it goes up to. I believe it's like 68 or 66% damage is the like most it can increase. Like that's the maximum damage pump it can get from the range ability. That's how it works. But all in all, do we think this Pokemon is busted, and do we think it needs to be toned down, or is it just the new thing that not everyone has learned how to play against yet?
it's probably a little bit overtuned.
Okay, a
The
little bit on the tough side.
even if we say like the late game is like fine, like even if like we can leave the late game and we can talk about the late game later. It's just the early game, like having Solar Beam at level 1 is kind of stupid. Like
That is
for
strong.
competitive play specifically, being able to Solar Beam at level 1 is just hilariously unfair. Like one of the strats that we were doing last night or tonight with my team is we would actually have Mew invade and we would have Snorlax also invade.
Okay.
So your Snorlax would tackle the jungler and the Mew would Solar Beam and just immediately one-shot him.
Huh.
Like,
Yeah.
and just level 1, just the jungler's dead. Like, what he's dead now. Like,
Yeah.
and then
it's
you just
over.
take the buffs and you leave. Like, it's having Solar Beam at level 1 is just hilarious.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
bit too strong.
Okay, Jeff. Are you in agreement with Feppy, or do you think that it's in a better spot than that?
I think the Solar Beam at the base level is balanced a good bit by the fact that it does have a 9-second cooldown before it gets the reductions
Sure.
at the plus skill at level 10. Like, that's a really long cooldown early in the game. And it does, like, some really impressive things. It does, like it's cheeky when you get in them and get them from a range, but it really doesn't feel that crazy to me early. If I were to say, Jeff, we need to touch something on me, what would you do? I would actually like to see the cooldown reduction reduced on its later, because the big damage in the late game where the character is really kind of obnoxious is when you beam and then beam again immediately. So something we've seen them do on a lot of characters is reductions like that work different on wild Pokemon versus players, and they probably just shouldn't get a full second of CDR on hitting wild Pokemon with it.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, CDR is raining from the heavens in this new map. There are so many things that give you CDR now. It is ridiculous, but we'll have to talk about all of that. But okay, so Mew, a little bit of a question mark. Jeff, you're saying that Solar Beam at first level definitely is punished enough, but the late game's too tough. Feppy, you think the combos in the early game are also maybe a little bit too strong. I think you both definitely have elements correct there. But let's jump on to what, honestly, been a little bit of my sleep paralysis demon. Let's talk about Mr. Mime and our first official, well, official's hard to call it that, our first maybe rework, technically, that we have had in Pokemon Unite. I mean, they're titling it a rework. It's not a huge overhaul of anything, but a full move change and then a huge buff to Psychic. So they're leaving one of the movesets still, like the theory of it intact. Definitely some changes there too. But I mean, Psychic and now I believe it's Power Swap, a whole new edition of this Pokemon. It's absolutely ridiculous. Do we have any Mime Defenders in this call?
I
don't
mean,
think.
personally, I really enjoy not being able to push any of my buttons for like a 4 to 5 second period when Mime gets up next to me. It's really fun just stopping playing the game. That's enjoyable, I think.
Okay, good.
I like it when tank slash support can just casually walk into a fight and kill 3 people by himself. Yeah, it's fine. It's no worries. Don't worry.
Okay, yeah, so it's strong, right? And I don't even know. Okay, in your opinion, the question I'll ask you specifically before we get into the words on this one, Feppy, what do you think is the biggest offender of this new Mime rework? What do you think brings it over the top of all the things that it newly has?
So it's a bit of a hot take, but I think it's actually the Psychic buff. The fact that this, I think a lot of people assume it's the Power Swap change, but I actually think Psychic is more of the problem.
It's all the stuns. Why does Psychic stun me as many times as stuns me?
Right.
Yeah, and the fact that you don't have to layer the Psychics anymore to stun, and you just only have to hit one of them in order to stun is like a really, really big deal, right? So you can cover a massive area, and then on top of it, when you layer both your Psychics together and you ult on top of it, and it reduces their special defense, and like they have like 40% less special defense, and then you bowl them over with your ult. It's just like, what do they do? Like,
I don't know if any of you poke at the Unite API metadata too much, but like for the last week, and we've had the patch out for about a week now, Mime has twice the pick rate of the second most played character, and has a full percentage win rate above the second highest win rate character. Like, it's really good.
I'm not shocked.
Yeah, I mean, those numbers make sense if you've played the game, right? Like, it's ridiculous right now. Yeah, the Psychic rework is interesting. I also wonder if the, I don't know, the SPDEF drop that the special defense drops that Psychic gives is just paired so well with a lot of really meta damaging Pokemon right now. Like, there's so many special attackers in the meta that are just, I'm gonna
be honest, I didn't realize it dropped special defense, but it makes all the Mew Solar Beams make way more sense. Like, how much of that damage is because their special defense is just gone because mine was there.
Well, it's the old Wiggly Venusaur combo, right? Where Venusaur does the special attack damage, and Wiggly, when you're sleeping, your special defense is halved. So that's why Wiggly Venu was such a nice little combo in early lane, and all of a sudden they just gave it Mime but better because it does a knockup. It's almost better than sleep. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it works really well with Glaceon too, is one of the other main characters that's being played right now. So
yeah, we'll definitely have to talk about that Pokemon too. But I honestly think Light Screen stunning now is hilarious. Like that, why I say I think the boost.
You don't even have to walk into it to get stunned. Like you're just next to it, and suddenly your character stops moving. It's like, what happened?
Yeah, I swear the hitbox is way bigger than it is in my game screen too. Like I am getting knocked around by this thing, and I'm not even. Yeah, it doesn't even feel like I'm close to it. But Feppy, what were you gonna say?
I mean, overall though, like even though the character's like overtuned now, I don't mind it because I know that they're eventually going to balance it and try to get it to like a reasonable state. I'm just happy that they made a rework for a character that's fun, that you can pick all of the movesets for except for maybe one of them, and they're all like viable and good, and it's like not really that big of a the fact that they took a character and made it from a one-trick pony where you can only pick one moveset to basically being able to pick pretty much everything, and also have the character like be pretty good and flexible is like, I think that gives me like really, really good signs. Like if they can do that to Mime, they can do that to other characters, right? This is a really, really good first step. I just overtuned, but like I can look past overtuning for the first rework because like it's the first rework, right? Like they're gonna mess stuff up.
That's true.
I don't mind that.
Well,
I think it's fine to shoot and miss so long as you fix what you messed up afterwards.
Okay.
And I mean the character, like the character's really fun. Like, and that's like the biggest thing, right? Is like that's one of the things a lot like we tend to look past when we're like at the top competitive level. Like, the character's really, really fun now.
It's fun. Well. I think Psychic is an unfun move. I think clicking a button and just running at them is the antithesis of fun. But I think other
it's
than
fun
that,
for the mime. I mean,
I don't actually think it is. I mean, it feels like you're just a Roomba attacking like the enemy. You're just autopilot moving into them. I think that is unfun. I wish that there was something a little more dynamic about it. Like maybe the effect is stronger if you're hitting multiple targets or something. Like I don't know, something along those lines. However, I do think you are correct. I think the big winner is power swap. I think power swap is a really cool idea. It just makes guard swap not horrendous. I like this addition onto the Pokemon, but you're right. It is a good precedent that has been set. However, the road to hell is paved in good intentions, right? So, I mean, we'll have to see as we go forward. But yeah, Mr. Mime, very strong, a little bit terrifying, and hopefully the change comes soon. We got a hot patch, but yeah, I think everybody in the community's consensus is that it was not quite enough quite yet. But let's talk about another Pokemon that has been absolutely dominating ranked games as well as tournament play is Glaceon. Now, Glaceon's new combo, it's sick. It deletes you so quickly and from a crazy amount of range. Sure hit is just a very, very strong keyword in this game. What are our thoughts on Glaceon? Jeff, let's start with you. Is Glaceon as good as it seems, or is this another case of just like players need to catch up a little bit?
I think Glaceon is a perfect example of people don't innovate enough in Pokemon Unite.
Okay.
The buff that they gave to Icy Wind was super minimalistic. This character was capable of putting up the numbers that you see currently before they gave it this very minor buff, but people were so infatuated with how flashy Icicle Spear was with the Unite move that they just didn't even give the Icy Wind build the time of day. And it's sweet to see the people realize, oh, this is really good, and it's really good, Zoinks. Like,
yeah.
It is crap.
Oh yeah, I know. I get evaporated every time that stupid bald in the back of its head Pokemon shows up on my screen. It is a menace. Feppy, what are your thoughts on this Icy Wind build?
I think it's a perfect storm of a bunch of different factors. It's like we can talk a lot more about this when we get to the talking about the actual map, but like
Sure,
a lot
yeah.
of the changes on the map are really what's pushing Glaceon into being so good.
Yeah.
But also like the buff to Icy Wind was, I mean, to be blunt, it was unneeded. Like pros are already experimenting with
Right.
it and trying it to see if it was good because we knew the spear nerf was coming. So like everybody was trying the Icy Wind to see how it felt, and people were like, "This feels pretty good. This feels strong. We'd probably play this if Spear gets nerfed." So like the fact that it got buffed on top of also getting way better on the new map is just hilarious. Like the Mon just like does 90% of your HP randomly if you're a squishy. It's just like completely unfair points.
Did anyone ever tell the devs that Glaceon was banned in Worlds? They're like, this Pokemon's got a 0% pick rate. We gotta tune this thing up. Yeah, it was that was rough. So yes, this Pokemon very, very strong if we talk about, but we've mentioned it a bunch. Let's start on this new map. So we are headed into Theia Sky Ruins. This game, this new map really feels like a love letter to Gen 3 in a lot of ways. So if you're a Pokemon fan like me, seeing the Reggies added, of course, Rayquaza entering the arena. As well as there's a bunch of other wild Pokemon, not all from Gen 3, but they pulled a lot of them from Gen 3. It just feels really cool. Pokemon-wise, this new map is amazing, and I actually like this map kind of from top to bottom, but we'll talk about these kind of in segments. So first, I want to talk about the new jungle. So we got a new blue buff that's now 20%, I think, cooldown reduction. Maybe a little bit less than that off that straight
20%. No,
it is
it's
20.
I'm pretty sure it's 20.
Yeah, okay. It seemed big because it's huge, but for some reason it's that big. And then of course red buff now damages more, which is awesome instead of just the slow. Very powerful effect in itself, but I feel like it's just overshadowed a little bit by the Asilogor's blue buff. And then we have ball toys added in as well, so now we have like 4 little spawning camps, even more later on into the game, experience on experience. But let's talk about the jungle in just a microcosm here for a second. What do we think of this new jungle? Feppy, why don't we start with you? What do you think?
I really like this new jungle because I kind of like how a lot of characters that didn't really see the light of day in like other, previous patches and previous iterations of the game get the would theoretically get the chance in this new jungle. But the problem is like the jungle is just completely dominated by a single Mon right now, which is Glaceon, because of that. The CDR is just like insanely strong on it. But overall, I like the fact that Gardevoir is like a jungler that's like never really seen play. and 20% CDR and like Psyshock is probably going to be really, really good on Gardevoir, right? But it's
Yes.
something that we can't really look at and figure out and like try just because, you know, Glaceon is just so strong.
You said that in right company. Jeff and I are both Psyshock Gardevoir lovers, so that is
Well,
a
Gardevoir did see play in one of the top 3 teams from Worlds.
Yeah, true.
That is
True.
fair.
without emblems
Yeah.
or CDR, a CDR buff.
True.
So yeah, it was pretty huge. But okay, that's a really good point. Jeff, talk to me. Just initial thoughts on this new jungle. Do you like it? Do you hate it? What are you thinking?
I think one of the things that's most interesting about the new central area is that the way the buffs are positioned along with the ball toys in the back, it makes that kind of buff early gank happen a lot cleaner for a lot of these Pokemon.
Okay.
One of the path things I've been doing is actually skipping the 2 ball toys at the beginning and just clearing the buffs, especially if you're playing a character like Glaceon that power spikes at 4. You know, you do
Right.
both buffs, you get to path at like 4.5 or 4 3/4. You get to push them off early and then kind of take command of that extra experience there in the path. And there's now those ball toys that spawn in the very center of the map between the 2 central area jungles, where there's even more experience to contest, and getting to that sooner can take experience away from the opposing team.
Yeah, there is a lot of experience in the central area now. You're right. So pathing more
Sure,
important than ever. It feels like, especially when it opens up the game to maybe not new strategies isn't the right way to say it, but maybe new looks at old strategies. The first one let's talk about. Invading. How important do we think that invading is on this new map? And in terms of importance, maybe isn't the way to factor this, but at least how popular and how effective do you think that invading is going to be in? Jeff, have you tried it? What do you think about the invade strategy on Theia Sky Ruins?
So I actually think invading's probably less good in this map than in the previous ones, and part of that's just because there's so much experience everywhere that getting their central area person slightly behind, especially if it's something like a Glaceon that doesn't need that much experience to power spike anyways, you're giving up experience in other places to invade, right? And there's so much extra experience in these other spots now that you're going to take a little bit off their center, but they probably have a carry in that bottom path or in that top path that's going to pick up extra and likely make up for that differential.
Okay, interesting. A bit of a hot take, I think, but Feppy, how about you? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
So from what I've been seeing, I think it's really, really strong. Being able to see in like the buffs like way closer, so they're way easier for anyone to take, is making things way easier to just disrupt the jungler and make their clears slower. Even if you don't get them, like just making the clears way slower is very, very nice.
Right.
And on top of that, if you do get the buffs, doing something like if Mew like just launches a solar beam at the blue buff and gets it, you now have a blue buff Mew in your bot lane. Like
Yeah.
that's really, really like just hanging out in your bot lane. You have a blue buff for the next minute, and that, like like that's really, really nice, right? And then same thing with top lane. Like if your top laner gets red buff and you push up too far, your top laner gets the red buff on the enemy top laner. You can just run them down and kill them before they can even get back to pad.
That's
So
true.
it actually really it matters a lot more for the lanes, oddly enough, than it does the jungler. Because as Jeff said, like the junglers most of the time are gonna end up getting 8 anyways.
Sure.
Because there's just so much farm on the map now. But it actually matters a lot more for snowballing your lanes, oddly enough, if you can manage to steal them.
Okay, so yeah, if you can swipe something, your laner gets powered up a little bit. Okay, so it seems like it might be more risky than it was before in my mind. I mean, you're just taking away a laner, which in that early laning phase can be important. So losing a little bit of that scoring, obviously more prevalent in this meta. So that could be an adjustment that we see. But awesome. All right, so invade. Let's talk the other jungle strategy away from the normal one. Let's talk split jungle. Split jungle really took over EU a lot. And then, of course, I think the age-old one was the Venusaur, taking it near the end, but that's more of a rotation. Let's talk about early splitting jungle, though. Giving a buff over to a Pokemon that would need it more than the other. How often do you think we'll see that strategy headed, especially in, like, 5 stacks and, like, coordinated team play? Because I doubt you're going to see that in solo queue too much unless it's griefing. But, Feppy, talk to me about why... do you think that is a strategy that's going to come up a little bit more this year?
I think it's definitely possible because you could have characters that really want blue buff but don't need red and vice versa. So you definitely could have that sort of situation happen. I haven't seen it happen in pretty much any of my games yet. The thing that I have been seeing a lot more though is rather than split jungling, you have somebody take the first couple rotations, and then you switch somebody in to help them get their ult faster after
Okay.
the first person already gets their ult. So there's a lot of like jungle interchanging now, as opposed to like actually splitting the jungle.
Okay, got you. So just a little bit more hot swapping is what you're seeing early right now. Okay, Jeff, how about you? Do you think it's like more viable than last map, less viable than last map?
I think it's definitely more viable, and it's not even just the part of the map too, but it's like which characters are good in that center too, right? Like we talked
Yeah.
about Glaceon's power spike a lot, and one of the things that can even happen is, the top path still has a little bit less going on than the bottom paths. Like if your Glaceon grabs that blue buff that's on the bottom, and then it shows up to path, one of your top laners can easily just come down and like impromptu split and pick up that other buff and make sure that it's just getting used. I think what Feppy said about splitting the rotations in the mid and late game especially makes a ton of sense, which is how busy the map is. Like frequently it's going to be like your center just had like 3 other things they were doing where they were getting value, but they're like, oh, the buffs are up, someone just go take these so they're not going to waste.
Yeah, this is gonna be a really interesting meta in terms of that. I mean, it feels like you're gonna be little fires everywhere, I think is the expression. You're gonna just constantly have to have your head on a swivel, make sure that mini map is ever prevalent in your mind if you are really going to make this map your home. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But let's talk about why that is the case. There is so much more experience. Specifically, now we have a middle set of Bs, which I think have I've been
Birds.
I know
Birds.
I've been pushing for them to be
Birds.
called birds. I don't know if that's really catching on. They have beaks, so I call them birds. But okay, middle birds is new, of course. So many camps. We have like 2 sets of Natus that don't go away when the goal zone breaks in top path as well. There is so much experience on the map. Jeff, is it too much? Is it too much experience right now?
I think it's actually just the right amount of experience.
Okay.
So one of the big things the extra experience dynamic adds to the map is that on Eos Island, it was actively bad to break goal zones much of the time. And in this new map, that doesn't really feel like it's the case, because even though you're still giving the opposing team those catch-up extra experience, there's just so much else everywhere on the map that you can kind of stay at parity or ahead of them by continuing to clear those mid birds and those Natus that are still coming up and things like that, even if they're getting a little bit extra on their side after you break their outside goals.
Yeah. No, I think that is exactly right. I love that we're now breaking goals. I saw someone post on Twitter, actually, and it was a take that I don't necessarily completely agree with, but I thought it was an interesting thought, experiment a little bit. With someone was saying this map really feels like it was designed to have that home base goal zone be at like a 400 HP goal zone, and like you break it and you win. And I was like, oh, that would be cool, something to test with. I don't think it would really fit on a lot of their game design philosophy for that actually to work, but it does feel like this map is more favorable to push and get goals in the enemy home base. So that at the very least. But Feppy, what do you think about the absolute motherload of experience we found on this new map?
I don't mind it in like the middle of the game and the late game, because having the opportunity for teams to come back into the game and giving the other team the ability to like invade and stifle the enemy team and further their experience advantage is healthy, and I like that. But I think having, like, in some of my games that I've been playing, we'll have 3 ults for the first objective. Like, yeah, and I think that's a little bit ridiculous. Like, being able to have 2 level 8 Mon ultimates and a level 9 Mon ultimate for the first objective of the game is like, that seems a bit rough. I don't think that that's something that's really healthy, especially because like if you have 3 ultimates, right, this like for the first objective and the enemy team has none, like what are they gonna do? They basically, like, you can't do anything at that point. You can't push a lane because you just get ulted, and you can't contest the objective because you just get ulted, and it's like you can't do anything and you can't push experience. It's really, really frustrating if you ever get put in that position.
So one of the things I've found on this map is that when you get behind in spots like that, because there's so much experience in other places, full punting areas where they've committed and you're behind, you're just not going to win those fights, feels like it's a lot less punishing than before. You're like, oh, this lane is just completely torched. Let's go push in the other one. Let's go get the mid birds. Let's make sure everything else is cleared because they're committing their resource in the spot where we can't win.
Yeah. What I think it really does, like whether that pays off or doesn't, I think it just gives us the choice now, right? Like whether it actually works or doesn't, now we have more choices to be making on the map, which I think is so good for a competitive game. I love having options, especially on a MOBA. I mean, we are constrained to just this one map whenever we're playing on competitive games, so giving us options to, you know, make sure the games are a little bit different, a little bit more dynamic is always going to be something I really enjoy. But yeah, you're right. Unite moves very early can be a terrifying threat. I think eventually we'll just kind of get used to it. Will probably be the norm. We'll hit those optimal, you know, jungle clears where you could do it with your eyes closed and things like that. We'll eventually hit that point. I think my gut reaction is a little bit of the Wild West right now in terms of, you know, ultimates, but we'll see. I could be wrong. It could be the worst thing to happen to the game. But let's talk about one more thing about Theia Sky Ruins is Regis. Well, and Rayquaza we'll talk about in a second. But the new Regis have been added to the map. We got 3 in the bot lane with rotating random spawns that don't give you an indicator of which one will show up, which I thought was very, very interesting because other MOBAs that do this same style of effect, they give you a notifier of which one will show up there. I would really like that. I would love that if it had it just on your mini map, a picture of which one was appearing, but oh well. And then, of course, the Rotom's big brother who came back from, I think, serving in the war, Regieleki is here and is ready to defend anyone who thought that Rotom should be missed in the last map. This Pokemon's very strong and has a really cool effect, especially because the meta is going towards scoring. But anyway, let's just start the discussion around Regis. Feppy, is like the general consensus I've seen on Twitter, rotate the top, always rotate the top first. That is the most important thing in the world. Is that the case, do you think?
It's a day 1, yeah, but not so much after day 1, honestly. Like,
okay.
Rotating the top is still definitely a priority because if you can break the tier 1 pad before you get the Aleki, it can be a really, really big deal. But if you're pushing the Aleki like into tier 1, like the other team's just gonna let you do it and let you break tier 1 pad. And it's kind of like, whatever, right? Like you don't really get that much value. So it's not always like rotating like everybody up. Sometimes you leave like 2 people bot lane or 1 person bot lane or whatever. The big thing is like sometimes you roll the lottery and you like, oh, we're just gonna leave 4 people bot lane because we're losing top lane, and then just all of a sudden you just roll a Reggie steal and you're like, woo! Like, and you just luck out, you know.
Sometimes you roll a Regice though, and it feels bad.
It feels bad.
Jeff, how about you? Do you think that the optimal plays is still gonna be pushing top early, or do you think that now it's a bit more varied as people have had time with this map?
I think Feppy hit the nail on the head that while Regieleki is definitely more powerful than Rotom in terms of how it pushes, it still just isn't valuable if their outside goal zone and the top is up. So what objectives you're rotating to really depend on what the position on the map looks like. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if just all the goal zones are up and those objectives come up, if optimal play becomes just get big and get value other places on the map until you can eventually crack that top goal and then do something meaningful with the objective.
Yeah. That would make a lot of sense to me. I mean, I casted Rush, so like EU's kind of tournament last weekend, and I was really surprised that Lecky was just kind of being left completely alone right at that 7-minute mark. No matter what, they were fighting over that bottom Reggie usually, but it was like you were saying, Jeff, a lot of people would still just farm if they needed to, because that level 8, level 9 is very achievable by that time frame. So if you can hit those unites, make something happen, it's gonna be a big twist for sure. But yeah, so Reggie's added to the game, new buffs. Regice bad, Registeel good, Regirock. How do we feel about Regirock? Is he in the middle or is he like down there in the tier with Regice? Feppy?
Yeah, he's like whatever. Like he's still he's still experienced for people, and it's kind of nice when you're defending, but other than that, it's like whatever.
Okay, fair enough.
Free XP is like what's wrong with free XP, right?
That's true. And I believe, if anybody's wondering, I believe it is about half as much as Dreadnought used to give in terms of team-wide XP. So that is the new. They toned down the amount of experience you got from the team-wide. But Jeff,
significant amount. Yep.
Yeah. Big number. Jeff, do you think that Regirock is somewhere in the middle, or do you think it's worse than middle in terms of priority?
I really haven't been super impressed with the buffs from any of them, honestly, especially when if you're not like getting a good team fight there and getting knockouts almost feels more important than getting the objective itself. Like if you can get it for free, it's nice, but it really hasn't felt super great to commit a bunch of resources to.
Cool. Okay, yeah, I think that's completely true. Let's jump to the final 2 minutes of the game. My honest favorite change that this new map has brought on. This game feels flipping amazing in the final 2 minutes now. I feel like it's so much more exciting, start to finish, no matter what happens. Rayquaza's entered the battlefield, a new Baron-style objective to go after. When you knock this one out, though, it grants you a shield, goal getter, and score shield, basically, as well, of course, making some speed zones on the map and stuff like that. I think anybody listening to this podcast knows how it works and knows the interactions and things like that, but I just want your impressions from you two. Have you enjoyed this new format? And maybe you can talk to me about it like from a solo queue perspective too. I know you're both solo queue or maybe even duo queue grinders, as well as playing on 5 stacks and teams and stuff like that. How does this final 2 minutes feel in comparison to of course the last map we had? Jeff, why don't you kick us off?
It really feels like every second of the end game counts.
Yeah.
With Zapdos, you often ended up in situations where like the final 60 seconds were just a victory lap and the game was over. And with Rayquaza, you can't just grab the objective and then run and dunk your points in, which means if you don't decisively win the team fight and then get the objective, they're going to be knocking your shields off and your Aeos energy is not going in. And this dynamic not only means you need to win that team fight hard, but it means every point you score before the 2 minutes really matters that much more, because counter scoring is much more feasible when you know you're only dunking 100 or 200 points post objective at the end of the game.
And a note on that I love so much about that decisive team fight you're talking about, I found in the way I've been playing in games and stuff, is that prioritization of who you're bursting down in team fights has never been more important than now, because we've lost team fights, but we've been able to take out the damage carries on the other side. So what's the Snorlax gonna do? Just slowly punch this like very, very healthy Rayquaza in the middle for 30 seconds? I mean, we're all back off spawn and we refight again. I don't know. It's really cool that it pays off to make sure well, if we're gonna lose, it doesn't matter. Just take out their burst, and then we should be all right to refight. But
one really big dynamic that happened slightly before the 2 minute mark too, I've noticed, is that because refights happen so frequently in the end game now, using your Unite move at what would be considered late on the previous map at like that 220, 230, 245 mark is actually good if you're getting value out of it, because having Unites come back up in the 1 minute 15 second, 1 minute 30 second marker is valuable, because you're going to be fighting and refighting.
Okay. Yeah. No, I see that. All right, Feppy, talk to me. Your initial reactions on the 2 minute last final stretch, all the things in the new map.
So I haven't played I've probably played 10 games of solo queue this season. So
okay.
I don't really
Yeah,
I have no idea how it
then.
feels in solo queue, to be honest. But in competitive 5 stacks, it's actually it can either be stifling or it can be a ton of fun. When you're ahead and you have control of the pit and you have priority and you're up on points, trying to control Ray and just all the fun stuff you have to do for macro to try and deny back caps, and while also holding the pit so they can't walk in and try and flip the Ray before you can get there, is all of that is really, really fun. But when you're playing it from behind, it feels so awful.
Really?
if you're playing against a team that knows what they're doing and just does all of their rotations perfectly, and it's really, really frustrating when to try and enter the Ray pit and try and get something done, or try to get a back cap in and you just get collapsed on and you die, and then
sure,
it's honestly really, really frustrating when you're behind, which is honestly a good thing, I think, because it's one of the complaints that a lot of people complained about with Zapdos for a while, is just people would somehow manage to find a way to get into the pit. One of the things you do is just drop Hoopa Portal, 5-man onto the Zap, and just pray you get it, right? And you can't really do that with Ray, because you're either gonna die, because it actually does a lot of damage and it's hard to kill.
Yeah.
And so the enemy team's just gonna kill you before you can do that.
Right.
Or, you flip it and you somehow manage to get it, but 4 of you are dead, and you're not getting the benefits of the Zapdos, so it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
You can't easily rescore because it's not instant dunks. So all the enemy team has to do is just break 40% of your max HP on your shield, and all of a sudden you don't have the effect anymore. So who cares?
Yep. And knocked out
the other part of that
teammates
too,
don't get the shield too, which is Crazy.
Yeah. The teammates that are knocked out not getting the shield is a big deal, right? Because when they would happen off a zap is you last hit the zap, your friends respawn and they just beeline across the
Yeah,
map
they could
and
respawn
pick up
and
energy
yeah.
and do it. But now they don't have the shield because they weren't conscious when the objective went down, so you just get no benefit from it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really has opened up a lot. I can imagine, and playing against a really good coordinated team that's been ahead the entire game is going to feel super hard to find some kind of comeback mechanic now. So I think that's probably why experience is so plentiful on the map. There's another comeback mechanic before the 2 minutes. But yeah, sorry, Jeff, what were you saying?
One of the endgame dynamics too that's really interesting is that we talked about Regieleki being better than the Rotom, and that last Regieleki, if you've got their home base open now, it's basically a Zapdos you're pushing at their home. So like there's a different dynamic where previously you just let that last Rotom walk at their home in Eos Island and just get the zap off the board, but now pushing that Reggie is better than taking the Rayquaza off the board. So there's even a different dynamic in that right before the 2 minute mark, how those objectives line up with what's going on.
Yeah. And that Reggie leashes now, where Rotom didn't leash. So like you can't just leave it on one hit and wait for that final like moment to do it. Like you gotta commit more resources towards doing it and a full like timely rotation to make that happen too. So more choice, more strategy. I'm loving it. I'm really loving it. Feppy, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I agree. I like all the small changes, like as you're saying, like the Regieleki leashing. It's kind of too short of a leash range. It's kind of annoying sometimes. But that aside, like a lot of the smaller changes that they've made to this map in comparison to the old map is just they're just really nice, solid changes. I mean, like Aleki is basically budget Zapdos. Like you can just win. You can win games with Aleki, right? It's an actual win condition in the late game, but in order to make it a win condition, you have to spend 8 minutes of the game setting it up.
True.
And that's a legitimate strategy. Or you can just, decide that that's not your strategy and focus on other stuff and focus on purely farming, getting XP, and then focusing on, keeping the enemies outside of the Ray Pit and denying the Aleki. So it's not just like all right, well, we're going to go for dreads and hope we get a bunch of dreads, and then we're going to go mid, and if they're not there, we're going to flip the zap, and if they're there, we're just going to go 5-man back cap their base or something. Like there's a lot of like, you're playing for your win condition starting at minute 1 as opposed to playing the first 8 minutes of the game and then figuring out what your win condition is.
Yeah, the gameplay has to change there a little bit. That's true.
One of the big things that stands out in my mind, at least from a lot of the solo queue games that I've played, is that 4 or 5 minute Regieleki where people would throw themselves the tier 2 and sometimes they would get it, but they'd get knocked out in the process. That always felt awful when people did that with the Rotom because those points just didn't matter. But breaking that tier 2 is just so good for that final Regieleki. Now it's like worth giving up experience to push that point lead in the mid game.
Yeah, and if Lucky's going and they're committing to it, a split push pays off even better in this map than it did before, and you don't even have to split push. You can just steal their jungle sometimes because it's so accessible, which is sweet. But yeah, anyway, I like it a lot, but we have talked a lot about this new map. I'm so excited for it. There's obviously going to be more and more things discovered and text created and stuff, but let's jump to what we know now, and that is content creator tier list. So let's take a look at Indie's tier list here. I realize I gotta share my screen here for you guys so you can see what we're looking at.
All right.
But yeah, so this is Indie's tier list that he made. I think this is the most recent one, pretty sure. Obviously we all know Inder, a very strong player, been playing a ton of 5 stacks this season. This is how they've got their tier list laid out. Now, what are our initial thoughts? First off, Feppy, what is one Pokemon that you think is put in absolutely the wrong spot?
Let me take a look for a sec.
Okay. Jeff, sorry, go ahead, Feppy.
Definitely Charizard.
Yeah, the new thoughts of
yeah.
Charizard now have been a little insane. This Pokemon is crazy.
I'm not surprised that people missed that, by the way. I mean, pretty much everybody missed it. Like nobody expected, like, because everybody was thinking about like top lane as like the normal, like everybody's just doing the same things that they used to do. We're just gonna play Lucario and like do Lucario things, and oh my god, look, there's these Natus. That's gonna be really good for E-speed. And then people are like, yeah, but what if we just have Charizard ult? That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Like,
like Charizard up by like first dread, or
Yeah.
Reggie, which is insane. But yeah, okay, Charizard has definitely moved up the ranks. I think if we asked Inder today to make another tier list, they would probably have them at least out of B. Charizard has definitely seen so much rise in popularity. Okay, I got some talking chat for Gengar. I don't know. I think Gengar might belong there. We'll see. Jeff, talk to me. Do you think there's any Pokemon that is completely out of place here?
I would be surprised if Hoopa is A on this new map.
Okay.
I think there's two reasons I say that. The first is that there's a lot of stealth nerfs in the map itself for Hoopa. There's one less berry on each side for it to provide more consistent healing early. The portals going back to base, your base heals slower, so you're out of combat engagements for like a full second longer to get back to full health a lot of the time. And there's just less full 5-on-5 team fights in this map. It feels like even the end game engagements around Rayquaza seem to break into more smaller skirmishes, especially with preventing backcaps and stuff like that. So even the Unite move feels like it's less impactful than it once was, pulling everyone into the same spot.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I know the way that Inder's been playing this Hoopa is much more skirmishy, playing that Thanaforce trick build, which can definitely pay off with some Pokemon, but you're right. I think the Unite move of Hoopa is way less important than what it was, which is feels so weird for me to say, by the way. Pokemon's Unite is, design-wise, is absolutely crazy. But, so yeah, that is this one. I think those are all pretty good options. Let's jump over to Gatlu's tier list. So, Gatlu still has Glaceon and Mew in the S tier. They've added Mr. Mime up there. Gatlu's tier list has got EU written all over it in a few places, let's be honest. Decidueye being a plus tier. Now, Jeff, I know you're rocking a literal Decidueye t-shirt right now as we're doing this podcast. You love this Pokemon. Do you think it belongs here in A plus tier?
I think in coordinated 5 stacks, Decidueye has some potential because its biggest weakness can be mitigated by good team play, and that if this Pokemon gets jumped on, it's gone. It's paper thin and it gets deleted. And if you have a really good support character or defender that can peel people off of you, this character does have a lot of potential. It rips an objective faster than anything else in the game, and it can shred people or last it depending on what you're looking to do.
Yeah, in the rush tournament, I got to see some really cool Decidueye Unites in that late game. My favorite, because that new mid wall is a really interesting space for a couple of reasons. But if you play around the top end of it, you have insane range, but you got pretty good vision from there too. So Decidueye can make some cool late game plays, but you're right, it's all going to be risk reward talk overall. Feppy, any thoughts on Gatlu's list?
I mean, I don't mind the Decidueye personally. I think that's
You think it's A plus though?
Yeah.
A plus,
I mean
though?
the range from Shackle just outranges a lot of the engages.
Outranges Mew. One of the only Pokemon that can outrange Mew.
Similar
think,
range to Beam, right?
I think having Hoopa, I think having Hoopa B tier is kind of weird, but also like, you know, a lot of people aren't really even playing Hoopa right now, so maybe that might just be because, you know, people are sick of playing Hoopa and they want to play new stuff. But having Hoopa and B is kind of strange to me. It's obviously worse due to the nerfs that it got from the Unite buff changes, but overall, like the mod is still like completely overloaded in all of its kit, so it's a bit surprising to me that people are still putting it fairly low in their tier list.
I think not only is Hoopa worse, like you just acknowledged though, but like Mime getting better, Hoopa kind of fills into those same slots, right? Like Snorlax has been kind of omnipresent, Mime is now kind of overtuned, and it's like, well, if I want to play these two characters, do I play Hoopa in addition to them, or do I got to try and fit it in over one of these other two that are both really impactful?
Yeah,
I think Hoopa is one of those characters that like it's until they like just completely nerf its kit into the ground, it's gonna always be one of those characters that like people are gonna like, it's gonna fall out of favor and people aren't really gonna play it, and then like people are gonna realize, wait, but we can play this and this is broken, and it's just gonna constantly happen until, because like I think Trick Phantom Force is really, really strong right now, especially because it allows like, you know, your Mew, for example, to like surf into the enemy team with their ult and attempt to one-shot somebody, and then they just take the Trick Phantom Force out. Like, you can make some really, really strong plays with it, but I think I just think it's slept on because a lot of people just frankly aren't trying it, which is understandable because like new map, everybody wants to play the new Mons, Mime's broken, like everybody like support players don't really want to be playing Hoopa, they want to play Mime. Like we're like, yay, we're out of Hoopa jail, let's play something else. Like you know,
I think
like,
we can all agree that I don't think it's as good. I definitely think it has gone down.
it's definitely worse. It's not S tier anymore, that's for sure.
Sure, but yeah, it may be somewhere not B, but below S. I think we can all agree on that. B plus for Wiggly. I know Dupe Snacks has been defending the Wigglytuff quite a bit. I've been defending the Mamo. I think Mamo is sick in this map. Those mid walls, you can leap over them. Also, Earthquake Ice Fang is the play. This Pokemon is so much fun. I think they accomplish very similar things to Snorlax.
Earthquake Ice Fang is literally the lowest win rate build on Unite API for that character.
So far.
Yeah,
there's the
never seen Zoinks play it yet. That's
yeah, exactly.
I think the one thing that jumps out at me on Gatly's list here the most is that even EU players are rating Dragonite much lower than it was, like kind of an acknowledgement of just like how less important the objective last hits are compared to what they were on Eos Island.
Which is kind of wild because I really do think that Dragonite's Unite got better on this map. Like, I think the ability to fake a goal zone and score on the other one is way better here. But you're right, the last hitting objective, that is what Dragonite's really strong for. Not near as good. But yeah, interesting stuff. I should pull up my Discord fully again before we do that. But cool. Okay, so that was just something fun I wanted to bring up. We only got a few more minutes left, so I'm just going to hit you with a couple of rapid-fire questions before we hit to the end. But we've talked a lot about this new map and everything like that. We've seen new Pokemon added to the game, new strategies, old strategies coming back. If you had to pick one thing that you think that teams really need to get good at for early success in year 2 of the Unite scene, what do you think that one thing that you could boil it down to would be? What's the key to early success on this new map? Jeff, do you have one in mind, do you think?
Macro flexibility. I think we're going to see a lot of teams path in very different ways, especially for the first few months of this map as they try and figure it out. And the teams that not only are finding the most optimal pathing, but also responding to the opposing team's pathing in the best way is going to be a big deal.
Okay. Awesome. Feppy, how about you?
I actually think that the team fight focus firing is going to be way more important compared to last year. So one of the biggest things is like in the last year, like we had 40% HP buddy barriers and like you couldn't one-shot people. So there's no point in focus firing. You were constantly trying to bait ults and try to, you try to play footsies with your opponents, right? And now with the combination of like a lot higher damage from all of the jungle buffs, plus, being able to spam out more ultimates and like everybody's a lot more squishy, it's a lot more important to be able to find that one target out of position and focus fire them before they can blow their ultimate to stay alive. And if you manage to get that critical pick in a fight, most of the time you're going to win the fight.
Yeah, that is so fantastic. I mean, it's going to make support's job a lot more interesting and dynamic too, when they're not just a heal bot for their entire team, but they're trying to protect their specific carries. It's going to be fun.
It makes the proactive supporting a little bit more important, right? Which I think we'll see Snorlax's value just continue to go up because you're not healing them after the fact. It's better to like stun them up and keep them from doing the damage in the first place.
That's true. Or some would say Mamo's Ice Fang. But not Jeff. maybe just me.
Earthquake.
I want you to know that I've played like 20 matches of Mamoswine in the last 24 hours, and I think it's great, but Ice Fang is trash.
Wow, Ice Fang? Okay.
The Ice Fang hate.
Oh, I'm sad. Maybe you're right though. That's why I'm sad. But okay, cool. Well, I think those are both really good keys. I couldn't agree more with both of you. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting meta game that we're headed into on a new map. Going to have some great games. I'm excited to cast and watch you, Feppy. I'm excited to cast alongside you, Jeff. It's going to be a good year. And before we end, one more question for both of you. We actually haven't done this in a long time on the show. I'm going to bring it back because I got you two here. One more closing question I want to ask you. It's year 2 in Unite. A lot of players are coming back. A lot of players are getting good for the first time in the game and want to enter into the competitive scene. That's a decent amount of our listenership on this podcast. So, what is one tip that both of you have to an individual player who is coming up in the competitive scene that you think that they could use to, get better, enter the tournaments, and get good? What is one tip you have for a new competitive player? Feppy, I know you've answered this question on the show before, but do you got a new answer for this time around for year 2?
Well, the biggest thing for me is just understanding patience.
Yeah.
It's gonna take time and it's gonna take a lot of effort to get to a reasonable highest level. Like, I wasn't really having much success personally until, almost the tail end of the first year. Like, I wasn't really having a lot of significant successes other than, a lot arguably being carried by my team as I was just dragging them down, hoping that they would, carry me to victory. So I think it's really important to have a lot of patience and recognize that you're gonna make a lot of mistakes, but just because you make mistakes doesn't mean that you can't get better and you can't learn and you can't improve. Like, mistakes are good to help you learn and grow. It's not just like oh, I made a mistake, that's a bad thing. Mistakes are good. That means you're recognizing that something happened that was wrong,
Right.
and then you can get better.
Yeah, exactly. You can recognize what you did wrong. That's very, very important. I like that. Jeff, how about you?
I think finding other like-minded players to work with and grow with is really key, and then making sure all the people in your group have similar expectations and goals. You're not going to show up and be the best team and win every tournament at the start, but if your group is willing to learn together as they go and you improve in this longer iterative process, you can get there if you put the work in and the hours with a dedicated group.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, you get to see those results, maybe not as quick as you want sometimes, but you're right. If you have like-minded individuals, you'd be willing to put in the grind. That is awesome. Those are both great pieces of advice. We'll have to add them to the Overdunk Bible but whenever this series finishes up for our pieces of advice. But we are now hitting the end of our show, and I do not want to leave without giving you two the stage to sell out and shout out whatever you want to. So the stage is now yours. Jeff, where can people find you on the internet? And plug whatever you'd like.
I make a lot of sorts of stuff in a lot of different places, but if you're interested in Pokemon Unite, youtube.com/Hoaglandia Unite. I post character highlight videos there 7 days per week, highlight a different character every single day. I always walk through the build that I'm playing, items, emblems, the attacks, why I'm playing that build, a match that showcases it in action. Also do some live streaming, some tier list videos, lots of Unite content over there all the time.
Awesome. Great to hear. Feppy, how about you?
Yeah, so the main place to find me is at my Twitch channel at FeppyTTV, but I'm also on Twitter. You can find me there at FeppyTTV. Got some good consistent branding, and also just recently started up a YouTube, also FeppyTTV. I've been posting some of my stream highlights there, and hopefully I get to do some cool stuff there soon.
Cool. I'm excited. Some great YouTube plugs from both of you. That is awesome. So you can find me at ZoinksCast on Twitter if you want to follow me, but also follow at Unite Mics on Twitch to hear about all of our casting, our podcasts. I have one. Kirk has one. We've been putting out even more videos. And speaking of videos, youtube.com/Unite Mics is where this podcast gets posted, Doop Snacks podcast gets posted, and all of these other cool commentary and highlight vids and interviews that we do. All of it gets put up there, so please go subscribe if you have not yet. And then lastly, if you listen to this podcast in audio form on Spotify or Apple or Google or whatever host you are listening to, please just leave a 5-star review. It helps more people find the show, more people enter the scene, and that is ultimately what we all want. Other than that, the only thing I have to plug is a little bit of a date change announcement. Unite Mics Mayhem, also a new title, I guess. We're changing it from what I had it beforehand. But it's a new tournament series that Unite Mics is putting on. We're inviting 4 teams once a week to compete for $100. A very fun format where the winner gets invited back the next week to face off against 3 new teams. And then they also get to choose the format of the gameplay for the next week. So if they want pick ban, they get to choose that and all of that kind of sort of fun stuff. It's going to be awesome. The first night of that, this is a date change, is going to be on September 20th. So Tuesday, September 20th. Make sure to tune in at Unite Mics Twitch, but tune into the Twitter to see that announcement and everything like that. But I have talked way too much here at the end of the show, so let's close it out. They have been Feppy and Jeff Hoagland. I have been Zoinks. This has been Overdunk, and we will see you all next time. Goodbye.